We are back with you live once again on another Johnnie Torch live broadcast. Yeah, I'm starting a minute early. A whole minute early, right? A minute more of the excitement that you've been come to expect from a Johnnie Torch live broadcast. So here we are. Welcome, everybody, to our 207th live broadcast. As you can see, we got a new crawl at the bottom there. It says Happy 4th of July weekend. I'm a little anxious. It's the 1st of July. Got a couple of days still, but Happy Independence Day to everyone out there in the good old US of A. And actually today is Canada Day, I think, too. So if you're listening to this on the 1st of July, Happy Canada Day if you are residing in the great Canadian provinces, any of them. Okay, so without any further ado, yeah, here it is. I was putting this one off. I honestly don't even remember half the shows anymore. Such has my attention span dwindled. Honestly, I think in the past couple of years. I don't know, there's a lot of shows too that might have something to do with it. Certain shows are not very fresh in my mind anymore because like the Arrow season 7 has gone off the air literally like 6 months ago at this point, I think. When did that go off? Was that like December, I think? Something like that? I think the last episode aired in January, something like that. Wow, that's a long time. So I barely remember that. I binge watched Batwoman late in the 2019-2020 season, so that's kind of still fresh in my mind. I actually missed a couple episodes of Black Lightning because I was so far behind that the CW app there didn't hold on to the episodes long enough. So I think I missed episodes 3 through 5, 3, 4, and 5, something like that. Anyway, you know, it is what it is. We're going to do the best we can to recall these shows. I got a couple of synopses up here that I'm going to see if they'll jog my memory. But this used to be fun at any rate. I mean, you know, and I'm doing it as a live stream. So if anybody has any, you know, thoughts about the season, let me know. I mean, I don't want to talk about anything other than the Arrowverse shows. So, I mean, if you get enthusiastic about talking about something else that's completely unrelated, I might just ignore your comment. Sorry. But, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what else I saw this year. Usually I don't just limit it to the Arrowverse. But honestly, again, I don't remember. When did Agents of S.H.I.E.L.'s previous season air? I don't remember if I talked about that. I might have. I might not have. I don't remember. We're doing pretty well already on this stream. And I watched Punisher Season 2, which that is several years old at this point now. What is that? At least 3 years old, something like that. I don't know if I should do a separate video about that. Again, I sort of power binge that one. I didn't really watch every episode. I just watched scenes that had to do with Frank. And it was decent. I mean, I'm not a huge Punisher fan, to be honest with you, but John Barenthal's good. And it was a pretty interesting season, let's put it that way. But let's get down to the nitty-gritty. This is what we're here for. The pandemic-shortened 2019-2020 seasons of the Arrowverse shows. We're going to do them from least to best, as I can remember them anyway. Again, I don't remember, when did Gotham go off the air? Was that supposed to be something that was part of this? I don't know. I suppose we should be thankful that I'm even doing this at all, because I don't know. At this point, I used to do a feature called This Week in Superhero Television, where we would just have me sitting here talking about every episode, and that made it a little bit easier to remember. And then I would just go at the end of the season, go through the series as I remember them in the order that I like them. But since I stopped doing that because it was a ratings disaster, nobody watched, we just do a season overview show now at this point, because doing it episode to episode was way too cumbersome. All right, so we're going to take a look at the last. We'll go from last to first. All right, the show that I kind of enjoyed the least, and I wouldn't say any of these shows were horrible by any means, but the inaugural season of Batwoman let's talk about that. And again, I don't want this to be a very long show, but knowing how I'm long-winded and that we do have 6 shows, this is probably going to be about an hour at least. But let's get started. Batwoman, my thoughts on it this season. I did a video actually talking about the whole thing about Ruby Rose losing the job or leaving the job, whatever way you want to look at it. I'm not sure we even know for sure exactly the truth behind the situation, but that video was taken down by YouTube. I protested it or whatever they call contested it. I don't know. They still haven't put it back up, so I don't know why they objected to me doing a video talking about the Ruby Rose situation. So I don't know if I should. Am I allowed to talk about that? I don't know. This video might get taken down if I talk too much about her leaving the show. I don't know. We're not going to talk about it. But let's talk about the show just as a series, the storylines. Cain comes back from whatever wilderness she was in for several years. She's apparently got some kind of military training. She comes back to Gotham. Bruce Wayne is absentee. I'm not sure I remember anyone saying exactly why he left. Nobody really knows why, I guess. And by the way, we're not really going to talk about Crisis on Infinite Earths. At the end of the video, I'll try to put in a card or something so that you can see I got a 2-part video about that, talking about this. So we're not going to get into that, even though that's part of the season. But, so anyway, Kate takes over the mantle of Batwoman, takes it on as Batwoman to protect the Gotham City from the forces of evil. Okay, let's see. Hunter Iggy has a question. Johnnie Torch, do you think we will get Kevin Conroy and Will Friedle and other voice actors of Batman in the Flash movie? As I just said a minute ago, I'm going to save that for when we talk about the Torch News Roundup. Used to do those on Saturday. Since I'm doing live appearances, I can't do those on Saturdays anymore. So I'm trying to find a day that fits better for me to talk about that stuff. I'll just answer this one quickly. I would like to think that we would get a cameo if it's a multiverse movie. It would be cool to get a cameo of both of them. I don't expect we will, though. But yeah, the Torch News Roundup, that'll be... I don't know. It won't be this weekend either, because even though I'm probably not making an appearance on Saturday, it's the 4th of July Saturday. Obviously, I'm not going to be making any appearances. I'm just going to chill. But yeah, I want to talk more about that, as well as a couple of other things in the news. Yeah, we'll talk about that separately on another. But thanks for the question, Hunter. Always can count on Hunter for being a friend to the show. I always appreciate every viewer I got. I got a couple of new subs too, and again, we'll talk about that when I do a Torch News Roundup. This is kind of a separate entity from that kind of freeform show, that kind of freeform video that I do. Let's see. Getting back to this, the highlight of the series for me so far has been Alice. I think she was a great character. I really enjoyed Rachel Scarsden, I believe is her name. Again, I only have a few notes here. Let me see if I can find the names of these ladies. Yeah, Ruby Rose, starring Ruby Rose, Cain, and let's see, Rachel Scarsden, yeah, as Beth Cain / Alice. They had an interesting storyline in the middle of the season where Beth comes back from another timeline as the normal Beth if she wasn't a villain. And again, I'm getting ahead of myself here, but this is all spoiler. If you haven't seen any of the seasons, obviously it goes without saying this is going to go into spoiler territory. Yeah, so we get to see what Beth would have been like if she didn't become Alice, if we didn't have this tragedy happening in the Cain family. Dougray Scott, I believe is how you pronounce his name, as Kate's father, Jacob. He was the man that would be Wolverine. Yeah, folks forget that. He was supposed to be Wolverine back before Hugh Jackman got the role. And again, nothing against Dougray, but of course, Heath Jackman just knocked that one out of the park as Wolverine. I don't know if I could see it with Dougray, in his prime, obviously, as Wolverine. Also, a couple of other characters. Let's see. We had Cameron Johnson as Luke Fox. Kind of a bland character. They gave him his own story arc somewhere through the season of his father, Lucius Fox, being killed, and he had to sort of, wrestle with that. Let's see. Nicole Kang as Mary Hamilton. I thought she was an interesting character. I thought she was actually... I think she had a lot of potential anyway. Let's put it that way. They sort of eased her into a sidekick role. And, pretty interesting. Let's see. I don't know who's the name of the guy there that played Mouse. I can't find his name, but that was an interesting situation there with Mouse and Alice. At the end of the season, I pretty much figured they were going to write Mouse out. I was surprised to see that they let Alice kill him, particularly so early in the series. I thought he would have been killed by someone as the catalyst for keeping Alice evil. Because part of the problem is Alice is actually the most likable character on the show, I think. At least in my opinion. I kind of root for Alice, even knowing that she is so depraved, I guess. And seeing that she really went that extra mile to kill Mouse, I kind of feel like, I don't know. I mean, does that make her irredeemable now? I mean, before, when she was trying to kill her father and she, I don't know, killed Mary's mother, I think. I mean, Mary's mother kind of had it coming, really. I don't know. I don't know if she was irredeemable because of that. But now at this point, it's kind of feeling like they want to keep her evil. And not that I would want to see her, be the hero of the story. I don't know. I don't know how far you want to push Alice being so depraved. You know what I mean? You want to kind of keep her in that, frenemy. Would that be frenemy territory? There was again, I don't know what's going to get this video banned. If I talk too much about the relationships, I don't know if that's going to be a problem for the algorithm. So we'll just say that the relationship drama, yeah, there's some of that. I don't think it was quite as preachy as I was expecting going in. Again, there was a lot of hoopla about this show that it was gonna be preachy. It was gonna be over the top with beating people over the head with the agenda. I don't know. There was like two episodes, I think I counted, out of the whatever it was at the end of it all, 21 episodes that were kind of over the top, were kind of preachy. I didn't have a problem with the show on that basis really too much. Of course, they could, for all intents, kind of back down on that angle if they want to keep the show gaining in popularity. I don't know really where the show goes from here now that Ruby Rose is leaving. We've heard rumors that apparently she's going to be written out of the show and a new character will take the mantle of Batwoman. They are not recasting Kate Cain. They are just going to write her out, apparently getting killed off, and another character will take on the mantle of Batwoman. Again, I don't really know how this works with the storyline because now we're not going to have the Alice-Kate dynamic. So again, does the show survive without Kate Cain? Or is this going to be sort of a, is it going to sink after the season? Because as it is, a lot of people were saying that the ratings are very good, but it hasn't been getting very good word of mouth. I think, like I said, my problem with it, and the reason why I'm putting it last, is it does have a lot of shock elements to it that are really not to my taste. I think this is the spiritual successor of Gotham, and if you liked Gotham and that kind of gothic style, where they kind of pay tribute to Tim Burton's kind of style on Batman, if you like that, you're going to like this. I was not really a fan of Gotham, and I wasn't a huge fan of what Burton brought to it, particularly like Batman Returns. I would probably say Batman Returns is better than either of those two shows, Gotham or Batwoman. But I mean, if you have a flavor for that style of Batman, you'll probably like this. Wasn't really to my taste. There was some gruesomeness to it that wasn't my bag quite particularly. Alice is skilled at skinning victims and using their faces and so on and so forth. Kind of gory. You know, it wasn't my thing. We had the storyline basically, which was also very dark and heavy, where Alice was kidnapped as a child and mistreated, you know, not particularly physically abused, but basically, you know, mistreated for her whole childhood, which was also, you know, pretty uncomfortable viewing. So that's kind of the basis on why I'm putting this one last. But again, I didn't feel like I wasted my time watching it. I did feel that there was some meritorious elements to it. So if you, like I said, if you're into Gotham and you kind of like your Batman with an edge, I think the only villain we got from the Batman catalog was Hush, and yeah, that, you know, it was kind of interesting what they did with him. You might like the show. As it stands, I'm going to give Batwoman, the first season, I don't know, 2.5 stars out of 5. 2.5 stars out of 5 sounds about right. That's kind of like I don't know, a C-, something like that. I mean, it's not must-view material, but you know, like I said, if that's kind of your thing, you might enjoy it. All right, so you know, I'm gonna probably give the second season a chance, just to see how it goes, because I said I would give this season a chance, and it was enough to hook me to stay with it through the whole season. I like I said, I liked Rachel Scarsden's Alice. If she continues to be an integral part of the show, I'll probably keep watching. All right, next. That was number 6. What do we got for number 5? Let me take a look at my list. Who is next? Surprisingly, this show made it pretty low. I was expecting, because, you know, typically The Flash makes it pretty high on the ratings for me. I always liked The Flash. I didn't think this season was particularly strong at all. And I had several problems with it. Let's start off. I liked, for one thing, the fact that they split the season in 2. They kind of had 2 big bads, although I don't feel like they did anything particularly strong with either of them. Let's see. Bloodwork was the first half of the season, and that was a pretty, you know, an interesting storyline. I think where, again, I'm going to have to try to go by memory because it's been so long since I've seen the first half of the season, where I think he was like trying to defeat death itself. And he had some kind of sob story where his mother died and he wanted to be able to cure illness and disease. The actor's name, again, I'm going to just take a stab at saying his name. Apologies if I get it wrong, but Sendhil Ramamurthy, I think that's how he pronounced his name, played Ramsey Rosso / Bloodwork. And for the first half of the season, we had that as our main villain. He was kind of like a Venom character. Not sure, you know, he was captured and sort of put in stasis for the second half. The second half of the season was, let's see, Ifrit Dor portraying Eva McCulloch. Arguably, the main villain for the second half of the season was her husband. Again, it's going to take me a long time to look up the list of the names of these supporting characters. It's probably not really worth it. Let's see. Well, yeah, I don't know. What was his name? McCarrick? I don't know. Anyway, we got a bunch of return appearances from several characters. Let's see. Ragdoll made an appearance. Godspeed. Gorilla Grodd. The Pied Piper. Which, again, I've never been crazy about what they do with the Pied Piper. They kind of always want to make him good, and with this new post-crisis world, they made him evil again, but then it was sort of like, you know, there was extenuating circumstances, so I don't know if he's really going to stay evil, given where they put him in this. Yeah, Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I don't remember too much. The highlight of the season for me, and we'll talk a little bit about this because we didn't talk about this in the Torch News roundups. I never got around to this, but the highlight of the season was actually seeing Ralph Dibny come into his own, the elongated man. The storyline, of course, has him going after Sue Dearborn, who, if you know anything about comics, know will become his wife, at least in the comic book continuity. He's trying to find her, and she sort of leads him on a merry chase. That was sort of the highlight of the season for me. We also had some stuff going on in the background. I don't know. Joe West kind of not getting much spotlight again. They try to do a lot with Cecile in lieu of Joe. I think he had, the actor, Jesse L. Martin, had a back injury or something as well that kind of keeps him out of the action these days. They brought back Captain Singh. Now he's, I don't know what, Detective Singh or something like that. That was interesting to see him again. You know, I like seeing the old faces come back because they really haven't done much with him in the past couple of seasons. Again, I remember most of the second half, so we'll talk about that some more. We had Iris being trapped in the mirror and being replaced with a doppelganger, sort of a mirror version of Iris. I felt that was an interesting storyline, but I don't know, it didn't really feel like it went anywhere. It felt like it dragged on the same way that last season dragged on with, I don't even remember the villain's name last season, but that whole storyline with Nora. It felt like it dragged on beyond its limits. And it's interesting that they can't write a punchy, storyline, even when it's a half storyline. This storyline was not a long storyline, and yet it felt like it was. And again, Iris is honestly the least interesting character. I kind of felt that they leaned on the right emotional buttons with her storyline, though. I felt like there was an emotional moment in one of those episodes, I can't even remember which one, where, Barry is like resolved to get his wife back from the mirror dimension, and Iris is resolved to get back to her husband, and they're sort of like on opposite sides of the glass, and it's like a very romantic thing. And it's like the writers are trying, you know what I mean? They're trying so hard, man. They want us to really care about West Allen, and I know a lot of people do, but they really, I don't know, they just don't really have that it factor. We'll talk about that again when we come to Avalanche or whatever you want to call that in Legends of Tomorrow. But there's just some partnerships there. There's some pairings that don't have that it factor where you really want to pull for them. And I still don't see it with Iris and Barry. And again, we could get into why the groundwork laid that they were like sort of foster brother and sister. That's always going to kind of make it be an ick factor, kind of icky. But I don't know. They tried. I think they tried. We had Nash Wells. Again, this is the new Wells character introduced this season. This was interesting because his function was leading up to Crisis. So it kind of felt like after Crisis, they didn't know what to do with him. And then they kind of paired him with like a backstory with Allegra. Is that her name? Again, I don't know. Let me see. What's her name? Allegra? Yeah. Well, anyway, they tried to do something with Allegra being sort of like his adoptive daughter in another timeline. And I kind of felt like that was a story that was worth exploring, but they didn't really know what to do with it. It felt like it was like, it wasn't his Allegra, so he really couldn't get paternal with her, but she was kind of like, back the heck off, but, I kind of feel you. It was kind of like, I was hoping that they were going to get into their groove at some point. They were going to get into a rhythm, and they never really did with that storyline. All right, so again, like I said, I was saving this for the end. Well, let's talk also for a second about Vibe. They brought back Carlos Valdez, which is, of course, a fan favorite. A lot of people love him as Cisco, myself included. And I feel like they actually gave him some stuff to do. But, because it felt like last season, honestly, it felt like he had one foot outside the door all last season. It didn't feel like he was really a contributing factor. It was like, well, look, we get Carlos on, salary. He's got to come in. He's got to do something for us every once in a while. But he don't want to be vibe, and he's, let's. So this season they were like, let's give him a love interest full time. See if we can get him to feel like he's a contributing member of the show. They brought back his powers as vibe during the Crisis crossover, and then they conveniently, I guess on Valdez's part, dropped it like a bad habit right after Crisis. It was like, look, we need you to have powers for this crossover. We really do. We can't figure out what else to do with you after that. You know what I mean? It's like, because I don't think Carlos wants to be the superhero on the show. He wants to kind of back down from that. And I don't know. I don't think it really works as well. I mean, I still like him doing the Cisco thing and doing the sort of wisecracking, being the partner of Caitlin, which we'll talk about her in a second. But I don't know. He's just floundering on this show, man. I don't know why Carlos don't want to get in with both feet. It feels like he's sort of like living on the edge of this show, and he's like, "Oh, I'll come in every other episode. Yeah, all right. We'll do the witty banter. I'm out. Okay, I'll be back in 2 episodes." It's kind of like, why don't they just kind of like commit to him being vibe and just, I don't know. All right, so let's see. Danielle Panabaker, of course, with child, as we say, she, you could tell, obviously, during the second half of the season, she was being, shot from a certain angle, covered with pillows on a sofa, the typical things they were doing since the 50s to try to, wearing the bulky clothing to try to, not portray that she was pregnant in real life. And so, obviously, her storyline sort of, got less important on the show as the season progressed. But again, they still have her as sort of this, I don't know, this season they seem to try to force the issue that Caitlin was going to take a back seat to Frost. And I think, in a sense, Panabaker likes to play Frost better, and I don't blame her, because, Frost obviously has some edge where Caitlin is sort of the goody-goody, although I probably like Caitlin better if I had to choose. But again, I probably have said this every season. They're going too far in trying to make Frost, sort of like the fun aunt. That's kind of the way I describe Frost in this series. She's the fun aunt. She doesn't really have enough edge to make her dangerous anymore. Speed racer going down the street here for a second. Let me wait till they clear by. Maybe that was the boys of Cobra Kai. I'm not sure. We'll talk about that too. So yeah, I don't know. I just feel like they would do themselves so much better in the writing department if they would return to Frost being the Hyde to Caitlin's Jekyll. And I've been saying that for years. Get us back to that. Let her be afraid of losing control. Stop making Frost the fun auntie. Just make her a danger. You know what I mean? Let her be the wild card when we have to let Frost out and we don't know what she's going to do and we don't know if we're going to be able to contain her once we do let her out. That's a story in and of itself. It's the Incredible Hulk. It's that wild card you need, and they're just not doing it. All right, so again, I wanted to go back to this because this is sort of the highlight of the season for me. Ralph Dibny coming into his own as the Elongated Man. I really wish I could see Hartley Sawyer continue on as the Elongated Man, preferably in his own series. I think he and Sue Dearborn, again, I could try looking up the actress's name. I'm probably not going to find it. Let's see. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to find her name in this big list of of also appearing characters. But she is very good. and she brings something to the character of Ralph that was really needed. And like I said, I really wouldn't want to see Ralph join like Legends or something. Don't do that to Ralph, please. Don't do that to Ralph. He deserves better. But he deserves being on the show. He deserves his own show, and he deserves having his own show with Sue. Now, of course, we didn't get to talk about this on the Torch News Roundup. That's why I said I'll entertain this a little bit here, though. But Hartley Sawyer, of course, has been given the boot. He's been given the boot from the show for some, some edgelord tweets that he made 6 to 8 years ago, I believe. Again, I don't advocate for what he did. You know what I mean? I'm not here to say those tweets weren't cringe, they weren't in poor taste, or that they were better not sent. Obviously they were. And I think Hartley probably would agree at this point. But I don't believe he should have been fired for them, especially in that they were several years old. They were before he was even given the job. The cancel culture has gone way too far. You can't cancel somebody for something they said several years ago, particularly. I mean, if he had said these things now, the PR department or whatever should have taken him aside and said, look, maybe you better, back off on this or something like that. But at this point, there was no reason to dredge up those old tweets. Now, what do you go from here? Well, the Flash showrunners or whoever is in charge there at the CW decided to can him. Unfortunately, it looks like he's going to be replaced. I don't really have anything solid on this. It looks like they're going to try to replace him with another actor. But the problem being is you can't be phony about this. You know what I mean? You can't do this to James Gunn. And then James Gunn comes back with 2 new big budget movies. He's going to be back with the Suicide Squad, and he's going to be back with Guardians 3. You can't treat James Gunn different than you treat Hartley Sawyer. Because James Gunn had as many distasteful, if not worse, distasteful tweets than Hartley. To be honest with you, Hartley Sawyer's tweets, I've seen them, and they're really just middle school grade stuff. You know what I mean? They really weren't something that was so particularly heinous that he, he should never work in this town again. I think Gunn's tweets were even worse. But again, it's freedom of speech. You can't cancel a person and tell them that they're not allowed to work the rest of their lives because they did some poorly conceived tweets. They said some not very well thought out things. You know what I mean? That's cancel culture for you in a nutshell. We don't like what you did. We don't like what you said. Therefore, you'll never work again. We don't like who you voted for. We don't like who you believe in as your deity. All that stuff. It happens on all sides. And of course, in Hartley's side, it's basically from just trying to be an edgelord. So anyway, let's see. Wrapping up this season in retrospect, I don't know. I'm going to give this season, like I said, it's sort of a tale of two halves, right? I mean, the first half of the season is pretty forgettable. Second half had potential. I don't know, I don't know where they go because, of course, this show, I think they all were, but it was hit by the pandemic where they couldn't finish it where they wanted to. And it leads into a very interesting cliffhanger for next season as well. I'm going to give this season, I want to give it 3.5 stars out of 5. Maybe 3 is better, but I'm going to give it 3.5 stars out of 5. I'm going to give it like maybe a B minus or C plus. I'm feeling generous right now. I'm going to say maybe B minus. But it's kind of a step above the last couple of seasons, so that's why I can't be too harsh on it, because last season wasn't that great. I thought it was okay. A lot of people hated it when I thought it was okay. The season before that, I think, was even worse. So they haven't had a really good season, a great season, in quite a while. The first 2 seasons were the best. Let's face it. The third season I thought was okay. Anyhow, so yeah, we'll say B plus. We'll say 3.5 stars for The Flash, season 6. All right, so again, as I always say, let me know what you think in the comments below for these episodes that we are talking, or these seasons, I suppose. All right, coming up next, let's take a look at who came up next. This was a big boost from where I usually place him, but Black Lightning I found was very enjoyable this season. I was I want to say shocked. I was shocked at how good Black Lightning was this season. It actually was very good because, to be honest with you, by the end of last season, I was on the verge of giving it up. I was saying, if this doesn't get better, I am going to give it up because I have other things to watch. I don't have enough hours in the day as it is to watch all the shows that I've got to watch. But this one hooked me after a couple of episodes. It started kind of slow, but it hooked me, and they really built themselves up to a pretty good season. Let's see, Tobias Whale, they kind of took him off the table for most of the season. He was still in jail. He gets broken out of jail at some point, I think sort of as the enemy of my enemy is my friend type thing. We still had Bill Duke's character as sort of the, Man in Black figurehead. I don't know what kind of, I forget what the name of his organization is, but he's sort of like running things behind the scenes to make sure that, the metas don't get out of control. And he is sort of also pulling the strings of Jennifer. We see Jennifer's progress. She continues on as Lightning. I always find that interesting. I think that's cool that they have a sister, duo that's Thunder and Lightning. That's cute. But it's kind of like, Black Lightning is, Lightning, and then you got Lightning. So it's like Black Lightning and Lightning. You know what I mean? It could be like, Black Lightning and Lightning Girl, or, Lightning Lass. That probably would have been cool. I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud, but I always found that kind of strange. It's kind of like, it's like saying you got, I don't know, this is just off the top of my head, but let's say Green Lantern and his sidekick Lantern. You know what I mean? It's kind of weird, you know what I mean? I'm trying to think, like Green Arrow and Arrow, not Red Arrow, just Arrow, I don't know. It sounds weird. I don't know. All right. They gave a pretty interesting storyline to, what's Jefferson's wife's name? I can't even remember. See, this is what happens. Christine Adams. What's her character's name, though? Lynn Stewart. That's right. They gave her a pretty interesting storyline this year because I said to myself, you don't really want to see everybody get powers. It's like, what are you going to do with Lynn, though? You're going to just make her a big brain? You know what I mean? Because they gave her powers, but then again, at a really big cost. She had like these great powers of the intellect, but then again, she was a drug addict, which again is something she kind of had to deal with on her own. Everybody's doing their own thing, and that's what made it so great, because it's like she got to handle this on her own. And then like Jefferson had to confront her at a certain point and say, you're basically a junkie now. What are you going to do about this? Let me help you do something. And she was like, no, I got to do what I got to do. You can't really interfere with what I'm doing because I need to do this and this and that. It was really powerful. There was some compelling stuff there. What is a guy going to do when his wife, even though I guess she's not technically his wife anymore, although they kind of reconciled. I think at this point they are fully reconciled, right? And it's like, what's he going to do about his wife being a junkie again? I mean, not again, like she was already a junkie, but I mean, now he's got another problem to worry about. He's got his kids being in danger and stuff. We explored some of the relationship there between oh man, what's her name? I gotta look up the thing. Anissa's her and her girlfriend there. They kind of progressed that relationship. That was interesting because she's a shapeshifter. A very X-Men feel to this season, I felt, and I thought that she brought some out of it as well with her like Mystique. You know what I mean? She was like kind of like Mystique in that role. Bill Duke is Agent Odell. I'm looking at some of the names here now. Yeah. Grace Choi, Chantel Thoy, I guess is how you pronounce her name. As yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting. She had a really good role this season. What's the name of the main villain? I'm trying to find his. What was the name of that guy? Yeah, I know it was Wayne Brady. It was Gravedigger. Yeah, that was his bad guy name, Gravedigger. He's basically Black Magneto. Basically Black Magneto, but it works. They even had like the settings look like X2, which is one of my. It probably is my favorite X-Men movie, and you know he had sort of tried to use these proteges of his to, you know, these metas that he was like using for his own benefit. And, you know, one of the metas was actually looked like Anna Paquin. It was kind of, you know what I mean? It's like they really leaned on the X-Men this season, and it's for the best. That's what you do. You use what works. Borrow what works. Because nothing is an entirely new idea. Let's be honest. Everything comes from something. You inspire something, you know, no matter what it's from, it's been inspired from something. And this was inspired from X-Men, and it just came out really, really good this season. Yeah, Gravedigger, he was like very long-lived, much like Magneto. He became, I mean, we found out that he was a relative to Jefferson, which is also very exciting to see that there was some kind of connection to them. I don't know if you needed that, but when it happened, I kind of felt like, yeah, that's good. I can see that. That's needed, you know? And Jefferson as well. I mean, he wasn't dull. I felt like there were a lot of times in the past 2 seasons where he was dull. And it was like, give him a challenge. He had a challenge in this one. He had a lot of weight on his shoulders, and he had to carry that, and he carried it very well. Of course, Chris Williams is very good as Jefferson Pierce, Black Lightning. Of course, I got to mention James Remar as Gamby. Of course, I love Gamby. He's great in the show, and you know he's the white uncle. Let's call him what he is. He's the white uncle, and you know he keeps everything in line. He's sort of the Alfred. You know, he's making sure everybody's, you know, getting their 3 square meals a day, and you know, basically keeping things going. But I mean, just to give him a shout out. I don't know if he had really like a great storyline this season, but it was, you know, he was there, and it was very, you know, preeminent and sort of the connectivity, so to speak, of the storylines ran through him. And finally, let's get to probably was the main course of this season. The creme de la creme was, of course, Khalil's return and Painkiller's return. Of course, we're talking about X-Men. This was very much like a Dark Phoenix storyline where he was holding Painkiller at bay and was very reluctant to let him out. This is what I kind of felt should be happening with Caitlin and Killer Frost over in The Flash, but they don't want to go this method. This route, I think. This is the best way for these characters, though. These are the characters that are fighting their inner demons. They're having daily struggles. And you could feel Jordan Calloway is just a fine actor. He's just great in this role. And Khalil fought that battle with Painkiller. I guess you could say sort of a metaphysical battle, you know, in his mind and in his soul, so to speak. And Painkiller had to be let out eventually at some point. And you also could see there was a challenge to him as well with the relationship with Jennifer, which was also fun because we sort of built them up as sort of the Romeo and Juliet of the Arrowverse, you know. So that was sort of something that Roy and Thea, I think, had originally, and they kind of have it now. I think Jennifer and Khalil. And Jennifer was going with that other guy. I call him Troy Polamalu Jr. I can't remember the character's name, but he had this luxurious head of hair. And, that was also a source of consternation for their burgeoning love affair. So again, I really enjoyed Black Lightning this season. I think, as much as I hate to say it, I'm going to predict that next season, all these shows are going to suffer because they're going to go back to having storylines ripped from the headlines. We're going to have Black Lives Matter and all that stuff probably affecting the storylines of next season, and it's not just going to go on with the escapism. So there you have it. We'll see how it goes. But for Black Lightning, yeah, I'm going to say this was a solid... I don't know. Like, I think it started a little slow, so I don't want to give it a 4, but I'm going to give it a 3.5, I guess. 3.5 stars out of 5, pretty much like I gave The Flash. But with this show, I'm going to give it a comfortable B-. I'm going to give it a comfortable B-. I think The Flash was teetering on a C+, but this is a pretty safe and secure B-. Again, you know, leaning towards a B. Yeah, I enjoyed it this season. I thought it was really good. So let me know what you think about Black Lightning Season 3. And as we move on, we mosey along now. We're getting down to the final 3 shows. Let's see. I think in third place, I'm going to place Legends of Tomorrow. Legends went off the most recently. So again, this one I probably can recall a little bit better. We get to Arrow. I don't know what I'm going to talk about. I can barely remember it. So we carry on here, picking up where we left off last season. Astra is still a grown-up woman, and she is sort of running her own corner of hell. Because, of course, if you don't know the TV series Constantine, I watched it. I didn't like it, but I watched it basically for Matt Ryan. And I don't know, he had some kind of difficulty where he ended up losing the soul of this child, like an 8 or 9-year-old child, to hell, and weighed very heavily on him, and he felt the guilt of this for many a long year, until now he is trying desperately to redeem her soul from hell. And even though that sounds like kind of a downer, which it was in the Constantine series, they managed to successfully lighten that storyline here. Now, you know, I don't know how fans feel. I think fans of Constantine might not like that he is in such a light show, and I think fans of Legends might not like that Constantine is sort of a darker element, but to me, that's what makes it work. That's why I like this season a lot. I think left to his own devices, Constantine is a dismally dark character. Way too dark for my enjoyment. But you put him on a show with a bunch of knuckleheads like this, and he becomes a very enjoyable character, very engaging. And in the same way, Legends is it's too much. It's a puff pastry, really, at this point. It is not filled with anything but light, airy goodness. You know what I mean? We need some gravitas in the middle of it. We need something in the soul, in the core, to try to transcend just being a puff piece. So we have that. We have the resolution of that. Now, that is the only, I think out of all the shows, this is the only show where it felt like the resolution didn't feel fleshed out as much as it should have. The last episode feels like it was cobbled together of 2 episodes, and they didn't really know what to do with it for a cliffhanger, and they sort of just threw darts at a board and said, this is how we're ending it. You know what I mean? It felt a little bit more convoluted and like it didn't have its proper ending. It's like, hey, Astra, you're good now, right? Yeah, you're going to be a good girl, and, you know, you're kind of going off. And Charlie, she kind of had her character arc, and she's, I guess, going off now. And, you know, it just kind of felt a little too pat for me. But I liked the rest of the season. But I don't really feel like they stuck the landing, given that they had to give up, like, the last 2 episodes of the pandemic. Because of the pandemic, they had to sort of stitch 2 episodes together and just resolve it. Charlie's going to ride off into the sunset. She had a pretty big storyline here. She became one of the Fates, the Eye of the Fates, and all that. I thought that was pretty well done. To be honest with you, I'm a fan of that storyline in Greek mythology. I always like that with the, you know, the Fates are blind and they sort of can see. And I really like that storyline, and I'm kind of, you know, I found that interesting, and all my life as a kid, and I like that they used that here, and they made Charlie one of the Fates. It was really good. I thought that was a pretty good storyline. again, the fact that Legends doesn't have the kind of oomph factor that a show like this should have, it kind of feels like it's played for laughs. When the Fates take over, you kind of should feel the repercussions of that throughout all of the Arrowverse, but instead it sort of like feels like it's localized. It's only affecting Gary and Mona, and the rest of the crew is sort of like on television, like, you know, I don't know what they were trying to parody for Zari and Nate. That was sort of like a, I don't know, some like 80s sitcom, and then we did Star Trek with Sarah and Ava. You know, it just kind of feel like they don't really know when to like play the gravitas card a little too strong. You know, they don't know when to play it strongly enough. Let's see. We also had to bid farewell to. Well, let me finish with Charlie. I don't know. I don't really feel like I'm gonna miss Charlie. She's sort of a character that, when she was in it in the short term, I didn't mind her. But trying to find something for her to do, particularly because she's a shapeshifter, it seems cumbersome for the plot. You know what I mean? There isn't really too much you can do with her without making her sort of a deus ex machina, you know? But, you know, I like the actress, Maisie Richardson Sellers. She was good as Vixen. She was good as Charlie, even though a very different character. Are we going to make her another Tom Cavanaugh, where she's going to come back as another character? You know, that might be interesting. It's possible, but I don't really think they need to do that. I think they have enough characters on this show that if we lose one, you know, we're good. You know, we're okay. I don't think it's a problem. We bid farewell to Ray Palmer, Brandon Routh, which I was disappointed with. I've said I think the reason why he was forced out, because I think very clearly he didn't want to leave the show, especially since now Courtney Ford, his real life wife, was on the show as sort of a recurring actress, and I really liked her character as well. But I think they kind of like have a problem trying to find something to do with a heterosexual couple on the show. In the Arrowverse, being a heterosexual couple is really it's a thankless role. You're not going to get a lot of spotlight, I think, but it is what it is. They were originally going to give the Atom suit to someone else in Crisis. I can't remember the character's name. An Asian actor was cast. That didn't happen. So I do believe that we haven't seen the end of Raymond, but I do think, I mean, I would like to see him maybe spin off on another show, perhaps his own show. This doesn't need to be the end. Or maybe they could bring him back to Legends at some point. I don't know why they would have left him off of this show. It was perfect for him. He had a good rapport with Nate, especially. But he was a good fit with all the characters. And as well, like I said, I liked Nora Dark. She was very good in her role. I kind of feel a kind of way about her being a godmother and what they tried to do with that. They kind of put her in a very narrow box with that role. I would have preferred to have her as an actual member of the team, sort of coming in and doing an episode for a laugh and then sort of leaving. I don't know. I mean, I wish they could have done something with her on the long term, on a more permanent basis, but they kind of try to play her as a joke. You know what I mean? She was sort of beholden to the wishes and desires of like 7-year-old girls, you know, so she couldn't just stay on the Wave Rider. You know, it was interesting. It is what it is. I guess we'll talk about Zari next. She had a lot to do with this season, and for good reason. I mean, she's another character, second only to Charlie, that really is ineffective on the show, and I kind of could see writing her out as well. But they're trying to give her something to do this season, sort of like the way I felt they're trying desperately to give Carlos Valdez something to do over on The Flash with Cisco. They're trying to give her something to do, so they they gave her like a dual personality here, where she's sort of, I don't know, playing the airhead debutante internet, entrepreneur or whatever, influencer, is that what they call them these days? I'm not sure. And it's a different take, it's a little something different for her to play. Let me see, what's the actress's name? I really ought to mention it. Tala Ash. And she's very good. She played both parts very well as the original Zari, which was sort of the, I don't want to say uptight, but she was obviously serious in tone. And then she played this sort of airhead version of Zari. Surprisingly, I thought they were going to kill off her brother and let it stick. Apparently, they brought him back, and he's going to stay. And that's another one. I can't remember his name on the show. Bared? Is that what they called him? Bared? Shayan Sobhayan, I believe is his name. I'm not sure. But anyhow, yeah, he was brought back. I kind of like his character, but again, he is sort of the male Zari, and there is really nothing for him to do. And the characters, both he and Zari, don't have costumes. They have the talismans that I guess they both share at whatever particularly given story point it's needed, that give them the power of wind or whatever. But Zari isn't Isis anymore, and Behared is like basically got nothing to do either, other than just sort of being another bro, for Nate to sort of bond with. Again, talking about Nate for a minute as Steel, they don't steel him up very much very often. The same thing with any of the characters. They don't costume up. That's why this one is still going to be ranked a little bit lower, because they seem to have gotten away from the idea that this is a comic book show. You know what I mean? They don't really delve deeply into the idea of the comic book. This is more a lighthearted comedy adventure series. And they kind of just relegate Nate, who is arguably one of the best characters in the show now. They kind of just relegate him to the dude bro boyfriend kind of thing. You know what I mean? They make him a dude bro for Ray, and then Ray has to leave the show. They make him a dude bro for Bahed, and they made him a boyfriend for Vixen, and they're kind of trying to make him a boyfriend for Zari. It's like they really don't know what to do with him for a personality. It's kind of sad, because he's a pretty strong character, and he's a good actor. I like Nick Zano. I think he's really cool. I hope he doesn't leave the show. They tried to tentatively make a triangle out of Zari, Nate, and John Constantine. Of course, this could be considered a rectangle, because, of course, we have two Zaris, which was an interesting way to go, particularly since Constantine being bi, I expected them to, like they do with Sarah, just stick with him being gay, because it's like we can't have a bi character lean toward the opposite sex. And it's the same thing. But, now let's talk about Sarah a little bit. Now, I'm still disappointed that they're obviously going to stick with the Ava Lanch relationship. Ava, I feel like Ava's another character that's unnecessary, although I think this season won me over on Ava. Jess McKellen, it has nothing to do with her. I like Jess McKellen. She's a lovely woman, I'm sure. Her character, I felt, was unnecessary for the past, whatever it's been, that she's been on the show. This season, I think they did kind of win me over to her. The problem is she's sort of, again, she's not a superhero. She doesn't really have a place on the team. She doesn't really have a skill set apart from being a tryhard that necessitates her being on the team. She's just basically the girlfriend. But I like Jess. I feel like she's trying so hard with a thankless role, because they're just dead set on giving Katie Lotz a girlfriend on the show. When, as I've said before, the biggest thing that they could do to help Katie Lotz is to give her a male boyfriend on the show. Give Sarah a boyfriend. Sarah is the kind of character that seems like she responds better to a male character for a boyfriend than try to saddle her with a girlfriend. Now, this might be just my personal preference. Would I see her with? I mean, when she was paired with Nyssa, it seemed like it played. You know what I mean? It played. So, I mean, my personal preference for not liking, the kind of same gender relationships doesn't really mean that I'm looking at this from a point of bias. I just don't see the it factor between Ava and Sarah. Nyssa and Sarah had it. So even though I say, well, like, look, I don't like same gender relationships, then I have to admit, well, they were using it to good effect when it was Nyssa and Sarah. When it's Ava and Sarah, I don't see it working. It's still not working. Like I said, I famously said it's like trying to see romance in Laverne and Shirley. That's kind of what we got here. We've got, Ava is the Laverne and Sarah is the Shirley, and we're expected to root for them as being like this great couple that needs to be a thing at the end of the day, but I don't know, it just doesn't work for me. Let's see, let's touch on the last character we haven't yet. They're trying to give Dominic Purcell a story arc here, something for him to do as Mick. They did this by introducing him to a daughter that he didn't know he had, or I guess it was an anomaly in the timeline that now he has. That they tried to do something like that too with I think this is like a borrowed storyline from what they tried to do with Firestorm. Dr. Stein, remember, he was like retroactively got a daughter. They're trying to do that now with Mick. I don't know. Does it work? I don't know. I mean, I like the fact now that he's on good terms with her, and that kind of works. But this season, it didn't seem, the storylines of just him trying to get with his daughter and be a father while he's sort of a boozy ex-con, didn't really do anything for me. I could take it or leave it. But now that she's sort of on the same page with him, I can kind of see where they could do something interesting with it. But again, they've struggled to try to find something to do with Mick for I don't know how many seasons now. He was basically at his best in the first couple of seasons when he was just Mick, just Mick. Again, they significantly reduced the role of Mona this season. And I didn't hate Mona. I just didn't think she wasn't really a necessary character on a show where we had so many. I like seeing her as a recurring character just show up once in a while. I think they did the best benefit that they could have done with Mona by having her only appear 2 or 3 times. The same thing with Gary. I think Gary, to a lesser extent, I think he works a little bit better than Mona does as a, recurring character. But less is more, less is more, particularly in Mona's case. I don't really just see her as a wolf Lupin creature or whatever that was. So, yeah, rounding up here, let's see. I'm going to give Legends of Tomorrow Season 5. I think I'm going to give them a full 4 stars. I'm going to give them a full 4 stars this season because they actually, they did better than I thought they were going to do. I think they gave us the best season we've had of Legends, honestly, since the 2nd season. 3, I don't even remember 3. It was pretty... No, 3 was the one with Damien Dark, right? I think if I remember, 3 was passable. 4 was pretty bad. This was pretty good. I think this was pretty good. It was definitely the best season since season 2. This is, strong B+ season. B+, 4 stars out of 5. And again, we didn't talk about Sarah really long enough. She had the whole thing, the second sight. She had the blindness and the second sight. I thought that was pretty cool. I thought, because I said to myself, I hope they don't drag this out where she's going to be blind. But I did feel another one of those things where it's like, Katie kind of wants, a little more free time. Let's give her a couple episodes off. I hate when they do that because, like I said, I feel like they're doing that with Carlos Valdez. And I don't know. I just hope that going forward, we're not going to get too many more Sarah-less episodes. I think there was a couple at the beginning of the second half of the season where she disappeared because obviously she had to do Crisis on Infinite Earths, Katie Lotz, but I think they kind of continued on with the filming. So they had like 2 or 3 episodes where, Sarah is, convalescing or whatever. And then there was the 1 or 2 episodes with her being blind. But I'm just saying, hopefully, because she is the most important character. She is the favorite. I mean, I would watch the show pretty much just for her. Because when the show, as bad as the show gets at times, and it's been pretty bad in the past couple of seasons, she has been a consistent, a consistently strong character. All right, so yeah, it was a very good season. I was happy with it. Let's move along now to our second show. Just making sure. I don't want to be wasting my time here. All right, so Arrow season 7. We'll just take a couple seconds on this one because, like I said, I don't remember it too well. But it was a good season. From what I remember watching it, I remember it being really good. They got back pretty much everybody they had to get back. I think they got back Thea, right? They got back Roy, Mia. They, positioned her to spin her off into her own show, which I don't understand why people don't like her or don't really want her to take off into her own show. I digress. We find out how Diggle gets a son, right? He gets Connor, right? He gets Connor. And he also gets a very familiar looking ring, a green ring, which was, of course, very exciting for those of us who were waiting to see if he would become, of course, he's known as John Stewart Diggle. If he would become John Stewart in the Arrowverse. There you go, Bronze Tiger showed up. A lot of interesting things happened. We got sort of the reformation of the team. Black Canary, Black Siren now still on the side of good. Renee, which I don't know. I feel like Renee was done dirty the most out of all of them because they sort of set it up where he's going to become mayor, and I think he's like kind of given up his wild dog days. But he was actually my favorite of all those characters. I didn't really like Ragman and, I like the Dinah Drake, Juliana Harkavy Black Canary. But he was sort of like the real strong presence of that Arrow team, and they really never did give him like his due. I don't think they never did justice to him because he was always like, they didn't trust him, and I don't know. Anyway, so I think it was a pretty strong finish. Of course, they got back Felicity, they got back Emily Bett Rickards for a final scene at the end there, which again is kind of ambiguous. I don't think they're dead, but apparently they're living out their final years in an existence that's sort of a temporal loop or something. It kind of reminds me of Talos 4 and Christopher Pike in the original Star Trek. I think that's kind of what the Monitor did. He's sort of like giving them a life of illusion so that they can live out the rest of their days until it's over. I don't know. I think they did right by the show, the characters. I felt like it was a worthy end. I'm glad they didn't just have him die where it looked like that's what they were going to do in Crisis. So, yeah, it was a very strong final season from what I remember. I liked season 6 as well. I thought that was a very good season. I'm going to give season 7 of Arrow. I thought it was a good wrap-up, and I'm sad, though, that Stephen Amell apparently looks like he doesn't want to come back to do any, like, crossovers or anything. I thought that was still a possibility, given the way they ended it. But probably not, given the way he's talking. But I think it's a very strong ending of the season. I'm going to give it 4.5 stars out of 5. 4.5 stars out of 5. That's an A minus. That's an A minus because the thing that I didn't like, I think, was it kind of felt, I don't want to say rushed, but it's like they had certain things they had to do, and it was like, this is the episode, we're going to deal with Katana, and we're going to deal with, they did try to go back and touch on a lot of things, and that was the strength of it. Like, we're going to find out more about what happens, at the end with, what's the little Russian guy's name? Anatoly. They did pay off all these different things, but it kind of felt like I wish we had more time with some of these characters and places and things. Let's see. Yeah, that's good. That's a good review. I'm going to say an A minus. No, I'm going to give it an A. No, I'm going to give it an A minus. Yeah, all right. I'm going to give it an A minus. So that's like, that's like 4.5 stars out of 5. So let me know what you think about the Arrow season 7, the finale of Arrow. All right, and so surprisingly, let's see. I am going to give the number 1 spot for the 2019-2020 season of the Arrowverse to Supergirl, which surprised me because last year, if you don't remember, I called it the Supergirl Please Punch a Big Robot campaign because I felt that Supergirl had gotten insufferable. They started off reasonably strong as a strong series on CBS. I really liked the fact that despite its shortcomings, despite the fact that they tried to do these feminist platitudes, they did pretty well at giving us what felt like a comic book flavored show. Then the next couple of seasons came in on the CW and it became very agenda driven. We had the feminist trappings, surprisingly, well, I guess I shouldn't say surprisingly, but they went out the door as soon as it became a Bertolanti production, and then it became, LGBTQ centric, and then it became very heavy-handed in its political leanings as well, where last season was all basically about, a MAGA president and sort of a MAGA movement that was very thinly veiled as anti-Trump, with Agent Liberty being sort of the, I guess, de facto sort of Trump character, or at the very least, they were going to try to portray that as a deranged Trump devotee. And the last season was horrible, and the season before that was not much better. They were, they're dealing with heavy-handedness and racism, and like I said, especially with Alex Danvers becoming lesbian and the fallout of that. It was like a full season of her coming out, and then they had to write Maggie Sawyer off the show, and then trying to get her another girlfriend, and the soap opera elements were just too prevalent, and it became very unpleasant. This season didn't focus on that stuff too much. We had one token episode about Dreamer this season, where they talked about, transgender abuse and kind of, dealt with that in a heavy-handed manner. Which, again, I won't begrudge you one heavy-handed episode a season. Maybe 2 if it's a long season. If you're going to do 25 episodes or something, all right, I'll give you 2 for the heavy-handed season. That's kind of what I felt like Batwoman did. I think they did like 2 or 3 in a long season. I might forgive. Supergirl, again, they just did sort of the one really heavy-handed episode that was kind of like, oh, don't beat up transgender people. Like, we need to be told that, but I can kind of accept that. But, they didn't kind of beat us over the head with, it's tough out there for a lesbian and it's tough out there for transgendered people. we come to these shows for escapism. We come to these shows to be entertained. And when you're going to beat the drum for some kind of cause like that, it's not fun. This season I thought was fun. They played very strongly to the Lena Luthor story. They've been building up the story. Katie McGrath, of course, very good in her portrayal as Lena Luthor. They've been going back and forth over, is she going to be a friend or enemy to Kara? Kara finally reveals her true identity to Lena as Supergirl, but she didn't know that Lena already finds out on her own because Lex Luthor clues her in. Again, another thing that's so great about this season is with John Cryer returning as Lex Luthor for a large portion of the season. He's really, really good as Lex Luthor. And we've had a lot of good Luthors, so it's not like, you know, there's a dearth of great Luthor portrayals. My favorite, of course, is Gene Hackman, but we also have Michael Rosenbaum. We have, what's the Superman the Animated Series actor? I've got his name right in front of me, but I can't think. But we've got a lot of good portrayals of Luthor over the years, and he has really knocked this one out of the park. Again, they've tried to do something with the supporting cast. Again, I don't really think they need Dreamer. Again, she really is just a kind of token character that they need so they could say, we've got our first trans character in a show. She really doesn't have the greatest presence. And whenever they try to shoehorn her into an episode, I mean, trying to give her some prominence, it really just falls flat. Like, she can dream and see the future a little bit. That's not really something that's a needed element. So I would say she could get written off, but they have some interesting things to do with some of these other characters. Brainiac 5 has a crisis of conscience all season, which is really, really interesting. He's working for Lex Luthor, and he thinks he's working for Luthor for the greater good, knowing full well, of course, that Luthor is evil. James Olsen is written out of the show. Of course, he wasn't really needed from the beginning. He was again, another token character. It was like, well, we needed a black character, and we needed to have someone that was tied to the Superman mythos. So let's make Jimmy Olsen black. Let's make him, you know, an underwear model and very successful. Complete antithesis of Jimmy Olsen. So he really isn't going to be missed, if you ask me. Again, this is nothing against the actor. I didn't think he was a bad actor. I just think they shouldn't have called him Jimmy Olsen. Let's see. Jeremy Jordan returns as Winslow Schott for a few episodes. Breaks my heart. I really wish Kara would have ended up with him. Some people like Mon-El and other people, which of course, you know, was the real life couple of Melissa Benoist and the Mon-El actor. Do I have to look up and see what his name is? Oh man, why am I so bad with names? My memory. But anyway, I wish he would have been the end game for Supergirl, but alas, they give him a daughter, they give him a wife in the future. Pretty much end game for Winslow. Let's see. We also have, what else happened? James' sister is the new main squeeze for Alex. I guess they wanted to keep an Olsen in the show. I don't know. It doesn't really matter who. You know, that's what I mean. I really don't care about the love life of Alex Danvers, and they keep forcing this onto me like I'm supposed to care. I don't care. I don't care what Alex does. I don't care who she does it with. I don't even want to know. Talking about Alex, they give her a little more to do this season. She leaves the DEO. Apparently, she's joining Jean Jones. Now, Jean left the DEO, I think it was last season, and they're trying anyway to embrace his comic book status as the Martian Manhunter, as a detective, as a private eye. Apparently, they're trying to, you know, nudge at least Alex in that direction as being sort of her own independent private eye character. And she's still sort of the Black Widow sort of a lesbian Black Widow for the show. I don't know. I still like her, though. I don't know. Let's see. Julie Gonzalo playing Andrea Rojas. This is an interesting character. I really liked her. I don't know what her name was. What is her supervillain name? Akreda? Something weird like that. I don't know. But she was an interesting character, too. She's sort of a no-nonsense entrepreneur type. They've tried this before with Maxwell Lord. And I think they even got... Who's the other one? Morgan Edge. I think he was a cameo at some point. But this is sort of the entrepreneur, not villain, but slash antagonist. And I like this character. I like the actress. She's very attractive as well, if I may add. And I hope they have something interesting for her to do going forward. Again, this is another situation where they kind of wrote a quick finish to the show, so we don't really know where we're going from here. Luthor, as John Cryer said, they were planning on having Luthor get his comeuppance, but he's still out there on the table of playing, and that's good to have him still as a player, because he's honestly the best thing about this show, really. Staz Nair as William Day. This is an interesting addition to the show. I kind of like him, but I don't really know how far along they can bring him. He's sort of got a short shelf life, if you ask me, because they're kind of trying to make him the prospective suitor, but I don't see him going quite that far. I can see him probably having a bad end, probably getting killed off at some point, unless, of course, they just bundle him back on the bus and put him back in London or wherever he came from. Of course, we have a very vocal segment that wants Kara to wind up with Lena. Again, not a whole lot done this season, I guess, with Martian Manhunter. David Harewood, of course, great actor. I think he's really great in this role. Let's see. What about Dean Cain? He was written off unceremoniously halfway through the season. He is just found dead. Apparently, I think he was killed by Eve Tessmacher. Andrea Brooks actually does a fantastic job here as Miss Tessmacher this season. I felt they really did something with her. I think she was Miss Tessmacher kind of in name only the previous 2 seasons. But she actually works for Lex here. My only problem with it was I think at some point Lex kind of identifies that he's using her and basically breaks her heart. I don't think the real Lex Luthor would do that. I think Luthor, in his heart of hearts, he's not a romantic, but he's going to play his cards really close to the chest. I don't think he's going to sort of betray his sort of disdain, so to speak, for Miss Tessmacher. He only makes himself as available to her as he wants her to be interested in him. You know what I mean? He gives of himself only so much, but he's not going to cut that tie. That's kind of the way I feel between the Joker and Harley. I think a lot of people read more into both of their relationships. I don't think the Joker loves Harley in the way that the Joker, or in the way that Harley wishes the Joker loved her. He loves her only as much as he can benefit from loving her. And it's the same thing with Lex and Tessmacher. He loves her in his own way to the extent that if he benefits from loving her, he loves her. And both Miss Tessmacher and Harley sort of are caught between their emotions and what they're hoping to get out of this relationship, thinking that this relationship will progress when, unfortunately, it probably never will. Anyway, that's my take on it, and I did like seeing them play to that Luthor and Miss Tessmacher. Although, like I said, I didn't like the way they ended it. I wish they would have kept it sort of ambiguous. The storyline, of course, being still kind of ripped from the headlines. It was about, an over reliance on technology for your entertainment. we had an episode of Alex sort of being Alex in Wonderland, where she's sort of going through sort of a fantasy world and this and that. It's an interesting concept that doesn't have to have that huge political overtones to it. Let's see. The main villain, who's the main villain? Leviathan. There's that woman, I'm not sure exactly who she is. I don't remember her name, but she's taking over Leviathan from the male Leviathan guy that was kind of an overbearing jerk. And yeah, so anyway, to wrap it up, we're going on an hour and a half here. I knew, some of this was technical difficulty, so we really have to shave off about 5 minutes from our thing here. But let's wrap it up. I gotta have dinner as well. So let's see. I'm gonna give Supergirl. I have to say this. Well, let's talk briefly about Supergirl. Of course, Melissa Benoist, this came at an opportune time because Melissa Benoist, of course, becoming with child, as we spoke about Daniel Panabaker earlier. And she's going to probably be unavailable for some period of between next season and the shooting of, next season. So it came at an opportune time, I suppose. And there's that costume. Oh, why do they have to change costumes? They changed the hairdo, which again, they're trying to sort of age up Supergirl so that she looks a little more mature. Because Melissa Benoist, God bless her, could still look like she's, playing the sort of teeny bopper Supergirl with the hair parted in the center and the pink lipstick instead of now the ruby red lipstick and the bangs. They're trying to age her up. I wish they would just stick with the cheerleader skirt, but they weren't even pulling that off right. Again, I'm going to bellyache about the black stockings, the nylon stockings that made that look horrible. They just couldn't stick with that original Supergirl look from the comics. They had to ruin it with the black stockings. Now they got her in pants. I'll never agree to that. I'll never agree to a Supergirl with pants. I hate the look of the pants. I hate the look of the new costume. I wish they'd go back to the old costume. Sans, black nylons. It is what it is. But again, another thing that I wasn't too crazy about, I hated the costume change, but I wasn't too crazy about the back and forth with Lena. I would prefer that she stay a frenemy. At the end, they kind of made it that she, I guess, is on good terms with Kara again. But, again, I'm not sure because I don't remember too well. Anyway, let's wrap it up. But this season was pretty successful, pretty darn successful. After a abysmal last season and 2 pretty poor seasons before that, we finally have a Supergirl in season 5 that I would actually buy this on DVD and probably watch it again. Like I said, apart from 1 or 2 bad episodes, it's a pretty solid season. I would give Supergirl season 5 4.5 stars out of 5. I would give it an A. Like I said, the costume not being that good and some of the, 1 or 2 of the episodes not being so hot, I would keep it from being like an A+ or a great season. But an A, maybe an A-. An A, maybe an A-. The more I think of it, maybe an A-. But they did give Kara some things to do. I don't think they quite pushed it as far as they could with giving her some more physical foes. That's kind of what I want to see too. They're still working on that basis of sort of, she's not really a big combatant. You know what I mean? I want to see her get down there. That's why it was called, my campaign was called Supergirl, Please Punch a Big Robot. I want to see her get down there and, smash some robots, fight some enemies. She did some of that this season, arguably more than last season, but I think there's still a ways to go. So maybe I might say an A-. But an A- is still pretty good when last season, I would say what was last season? A D? I'm not sure. All right, so just to recap, we have ranking the Arrowverse shows from least to best last season, the 2019-2020 abbreviated season. In 6th place, there was Batwoman. 5th place, The Flash. 4th place, Black Lightning, season 3. Third place, Legends of Tomorrow. Second place, the final season of the series final of Arrow, season 7. And in first place, season 5 of Supergirl. Actually, they made a lot of ways. They made a lot of headways in restoring some of the grandeur of Supergirl in that first season. Which, like I said, I really want to see Supergirl do well. I love Melissa Benoist as Supergirl. I just don't think that the scripts are worthy of her, and they really need to concentrate on trying to give her a good series long script. And I think they did pretty well this time. I think they did pretty well this season. So there you have it, the long awaited ranking and reviewing of the Arrowverse season 2019 to 2020. You could check out, I've still got them up somewhere, the previous seasons ranked. They are pretty long as well, but check out my site. Just look down the playlists. I'm sure you'll find them somewhere. And let's hope that this next upcoming season will be as exciting and as eventful as these seasons were. I don't know how they're going to deal with it, with the pandemic coming back. I don't know. From what I hear, like, they're going to try to do less crowd scenes or something. But I mean, I can't see them doing all this mask crap and, But like I said, with Black Lightning, I could also see Supergirl very easily getting into a liberal soap fest again and trying to rip from the headlines yet again. Another pretty poor showing of, agenda-driven entertainment and not escapist-driven entertainment. So there you have it. Until next we meet, this is Johnnie Torch, thanking you once again for joining us here. I hope you enjoy the 4th of July weekend. I'm going to try to do some more live streams. I'm going to try to do some more videos. I still want to do some review videos. I got a couple of things I want to review that's going to be coming up pretty soon. Don't know if they'll be live streams, but I am going to try to do a Torch News Roundup that will hopefully encompass some of the news stories of the day. Again, don't know when I'm going to do them because we got a holiday weekend here. But tune in on my Twitter page. You can check the link in the description below for the latest news on Twitter. You'll find out when I'm doing a video or when the most recent video came out. Also, check the link in the description below for my website, The Adventures of Bullets, Bourbon, Private Eye, where you can check out our comic, The Adventures of Bullets, Bourbon, Private Eye. It's about a down-on-his-luck private eye who takes on the most colorful collection of villains imaginable in each and every action-packed issue. So, as I said, until next we meet, this is Johnnie Torch reminding you once again, keep the flame burning brightly, and I'll be with you again real soon.